Good morning and welcome back to Coffees with Toffees, the Dota 2 morning show for your consumption. A fresh brew brought to you guys here today. Glad to be here as always. My name's Toffees. You can follow me at Toffees_Dota2 over on Twitter. You can find the show on YouTube. You can find it on SoundCloud. That's soundcloud.com /Toffees_Dota2. And of course, glad to announce that we just got our RSS up and running and we've submitted the podcast to iTunes. So within the week, hopefully, you'll be able to get all of these fed straight to you, the old RSS style, and have a podcast sent to you straight into your phone when you wake up in the morning. So how wonderful will that be? And we got a great show for you today. I'm joined here by two guests in studio. Well, I guess not in studio, in technology world through Skype. I'm joined by Gorgon the Wonder Cow, the chief editor for HGTV, caster for Cevo, writer for Join Dota, a man whose accolades know no bounds, and a man who has just announced a brand new show that we're going to introduce to you, the viewers, a little bit later today. Gorgon, how are you doing so far this morning?
I'm doing very well. It's pretty early for me this morning. I was up casting that program that you were discussing last night till about 1 a.m. So, I just stopped casting 7 hours ago, and now I'm up to discuss the news over some coffees with Toffees. Glad to be back.
The life of a Dota caster never seems to end. And we're joined by our second guest today, Feeder Noob, a queen of the unboxing world, known for her mastery of cosmetics, also working now as a amateur stat person, I believe, training with the Standard Deviants crew. You can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but how are you today, Feeder?
I am quite all right, Toffees, although I also am, it's a little early for me.
It always is. That's the best part of being on a morning show is you get to see this. You get to see the sun come up for once. That said, though, we can get right into talking about pro news, so we can get to all the good stuff we've got. I will say, Feeder does have a brand new feature here on the show called Cosmetic Corner that we'll bring to you a little later on. So, pro news. First thing, the one that has been talked about quite a bit, but wasn't unexpected after the KKY news the other day. Puppey leaves Na'Vi. So Na'Vi has officially lost 2 of their 5 members. Puppey, a member who's been around for a hot minute and is fairly famous in the same way that Kuroki taught a lot of new players how to play support. Puppey taught them how to do his thing as well. So pretty big news for Na'Vi. Do you have any guesses, guys, where you think that Puppey and maybe Kuroki together are going to be headed?
If I had to put my money on it, I would probably say that they'll just kind of branch off and do their own thing for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think they'll both probably get a lot of offers during the season, but most of the teams that I think that they would very heavily consider moving over to don't have 2 slots open, and I suspect that they probably want to stick together. So
yeah.
My biggest suspicion is take a couple free agents or a couple of players that they know, make a new team, try to find sponsors. Shouldn't be that hard for legends like them.
Not at all. I think it'll be off to a really great start. So Puppey takes off. Big news. Na'Vi lovers all over the world are broken. I'm sorry, fanboys. Think of it this way. You get a chance to keep half of your old Na'Vi and maybe find a new team that you love just as much. Second, EGM stands in for Tinker. For Team Tinker this week. Also, Excalibur notably missing from that roster. So 2 sort of implied changes there. The fact that EGM's doing some stand-ins for another big, heavy-hitting team that's sort of emerging out of nowhere. But more importantly, I think Excalibur, a player who we've seen do pretty well as a stand-in in the past, had become sort of a staple with the founding of Tinker, and now is absent in these games. So a little bit of potential switch up on a few rosters there. No official changes as of yet. Era leaves Fnatic and stands in for MYM this week. So right after, literally, Fnatic made the announcement that Era was no longer with them, and we saw him playing with MIM. I think it was MYM less than a day and a half later. So not surprised that Era left Fnatic. Fnatic seems like they're have had some issues there in the past, and Era not as happy there as I think that he could have been. I mean, we all remember the chaos before TI, right? I mean, a lot went on, a lot went down. Ultimately, they went to the tournament. They did pretty well, but at the end of the day, he goes off on his own. And finally, the last piece of sort of pro shift news, PPD says, I believe it was on stream, that No Tail and Fly will be starting a new team. So I haven't heard a ton about that. I did get that piece of news passed on to me and haven't heard much more about that team. Gorgon, have you heard anything about the development of this No Tail Fly team, or is it still sort of nether news?
I haven't actually heard anything in terms of official news.
Right.
I've just heard things floating around the interwebs. I don't even know that that's to the point that I'd be willing to confirm that at
Absolutely.
this
No,
moment.
and we're not about confirmation. I give rumors as well, but I clarify that they are rumors. So that's a complete rumor, but the fact of the matter, it is being talked about. And in the world of Dota 2, usually once it's talked about on a stream by a streamer, it tends to be something that at least they're considering, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That is usually true. There's always the stream trolls during this time of year. There's 2 or 3 big announcements that happen on stream that just never come anywhere near close to happening.
Right.
So you just kind of have to hedge your bets when you see something on the stream and make sure you wait for an official confirmation from either team or
Right.
every member of a team.
Absolutely. So don't buy your fan tokens yet until we know exactly what's going on. So those are the shifts in pro gaming right now. Not as big a day today as it was back on Wednesday, but some decent shifts altogether. Other news that's worth talking about is some upcoming tournaments have been announced. There was a big announcement, the big tournament that's coming up, ESL. I'm sure you guys have heard of the ESL one in New York. It's going to be a massive game, a massive tournament, and they've announced who teams are coming, what the format's going to look like, and the teams that are invited as of right now are Fnatic, Alliance, Cloud9, Nodus Vincere, Virtus Pro, Team Tinker, Empire, and one that has yet to be announced. For the North American invites, we've got Evil Geniuses, Na'Vi, and A, so Narvi, Sneaky Nick's Assassins, which is very exciting to see them get that invite, by the way, and one more invite from an open bracket. So, a couple of things in here that are worth talking about. One, Sneaky Nick's Assassins is invited in the same breath as Narvi and EG. Consequently, no Liquid is in that invite. So this is a big day for Sneaky Nick's Assassins. It sort of puts them onto a chance to be in that Tier 1 U.S. teams, or North American teams.
Sneaky Nick's Assassins basically are Liquid at this point. Sna, the player for Sneaky Nick's Assassins, is not going to be playing with Sneaky Nick's Assassins anymore. And this is, once again, not official news. This is stuff that isn't published anywhere, but I've talked to Sna personally and talked about what he's doing next. That sort of thing. He is leaving, and it's basically Liquid 2013 from TI minus Bulba is Sneaky Nick's Assassins now.
Interesting.
And instead of Bulba, you have Ush.
I see.
Taking on that role, or taking on the mid role rather. But yeah, it's other than that, you're basically looking at a TI team now for Sneaky Nick's Assassin. So I honestly think Sna is a player that is ashamed to lose, but obviously getting a team of 4 international trained players is hard to turn down, especially when they all know each other so well.
Absolutely, yep. It's not a really great guy, so I hate to see him go. Hopefully he'll still be involved in some capacity, but big invite
he'll land
for
on
Sna.
his feet. He's a really strong player, and he's got a lot of strong North American players that he's going to be scrimming with. So some news coming out of him probably pretty soon, at least in like the Tier 2 divisions.
Perfect. And then obviously the other big one is, if you look at the European invites, there is no Chinese invites. Now there is one unannounced spot, and we could maybe see a Chinese team brought in for that. That said, they are left off of this invite list. And does that seem strange to you? Is that it makes sense? I mean, there's been a lot of shakeup over the Chinese scene in the sense of a lot of their teams. I don't know if if their rosters are ready to go right now.
There will be one Chinese team invited to ESL 1, but the entire point of this ESL 1 New York is that it is an American tournament on American soil for Western teams.
Makes sense.
The same thing happens. Even big Chinese tournaments invite usually 2 Western teams, and usually they're both European, but sometimes it's one European, one American. It's just the way it is. First of all, travel's extremely expensive to get Chinese teams over for lands, and the other thing is it does not functionally fit the mission statement of the tournaments, which is to spotlight Western teams for Western fans.
So then I wonder if, we talked about this on Wednesday, the WEC modified their format last week to say that they canceled their European and North American qualifiers and just handed out an invite to, I think it was 2 teams to join the WEC over in the Chinese LAN. I wonder partly if the WEC's change of qualifiers was in response to ESL's focus on Western Dota, if that makes sense, because essentially they're two big tournaments with exactly opposite invite schemes. So interesting thing to maybe keep in mind. WEC developing perhaps with a similar mission statement now to what ESL New York put together on the kind of where they're putting focal points in terms of this tournament, because they did run their SEA qualifiers and did go through all of that process. So interesting to think about.
I think that probably comes down to when you're running a Chinese tournament, it's harder to get viewers on European qualifiers, and so it ends up being resources put into something that you don't actually get a return on viewers with. So they probably just said, all right, well, let's just get an invite. We'll run SEA because Chinese viewers tend to watch SEA Dota pretty frequently. Chinese viewers do like that. There are a lot more Chinese fans of Western Dota than there are Western fans of Chinese Dota, but the qualifiers of anything tend to get fewer viewers, and then if you're going to qualifiers for a region that people know a little bit less, the viewership may not support the actual cost of getting casters and stuff and broadcasting out those qualifiers and managing them. So either way, it is a similar sort of thing to ESL 1 New York, but I don't necessarily know that I would consider it a response so much as they're both responding to the same legitimate realities of hosting a tournament that is regionally based.
The same realities, though it is a little bit of fun to pretend that maybe it's a response. So, I like the fun aspect of things. I like WEC and ESL, lining up in an alleyway with their snapping, little Jets Sharks action going on. Could be. That's my mental image.
Gangs.
I do love singing gangs. Who doesn't love singing gangs? West Side Story for the win. So that's that. Also, another tournament that was announced just recently is the See Me Play tournament. Is being run with a $15,000 prize pool coming up on the 25th of August. So you'll have a chance to tune in for that. On the 25th, they're going to have the semifinals straight away. And it's invited teams only, and that'll be Na'Vi versus Virtus Pro, best of 3. Followed afterwards by EG versus Cloud9, best of 3. Then on the 26th, the grand final is a best of 5 between the two teams that win. Winner takes home $15,000. It's a smaller tournament. It's going to be cast by Toby Wan, so it's going to be a pretty good one to watch. More importantly, it is set to be the return of Fear as the carry for EG, or so they are saying on the news release sites. Whether that's true or not, remember we did hear a statement from, hold on, I think it was Arteezy that mentioned the idea that Zai was looking at possibly playing another position, and Fear and him may be switching here and there in some tournaments to kind of see where everyone's comfortable. That said, though, I think because of the nature of the tournament, Fear will most likely be coming back in as a carry, and it'll be a lot of fun to see him back. So
you don't usually experiment positions on a quick fire style tournament for $15,000.
Right, and
that's not the right forum for being like, I guess we can give it another try.
Zai normally plays the 4 position, correct?
I believe so.
And I remember reading something that Zai had talked about wanting to move into another position, but his and PPD's communication, and they've been doing it so long together that it was just easier to stick together instead of train someone else to take over a support role. So I know that Zai's had a little bit of itchy feet in wanting to try something new. And you're right. I think for a $15,000 tournament, first of the year, with ESL around the corner, it'll most likely be Fear in the carry role. But I wouldn't be surprised to see as we move through the season, Zai and him switching things up a little bit and trying some things out in maybe some of the smaller tournaments or just in the scrims over on the NEL, things like that. So pretty exciting. It'll be a tournament to watch if for no other reason than to see Fear back in action for the first time in a while. He's been playing in the NEL pretty consistently. I've been seeing him up there, and he's doing a great job when he's on. So excited about that. Next one, and we're going to take a little bit of time, not a ton of time with this one, but I do want to talk about it. So IX Mike, master of ceremonies over with the Sneaky Nicks Assassins, posted on Twitter yesterday and accused Union Gaming, who was a TI qualifier invite, of using pauses and observer spots to cheat. And that's a pretty big accusation. Now, before we get into this, I want to say that none of this is something that has been proven. This is an IX Mike post. IX Mike, who's known for being sensational, to say the least, but usually doesn't say things. He's, what do I like to call him? I like to call him brutally honest, usually. And basically what he said is that, if you missed the tweet, he said that UG and other teams in the area have been doing things like putting their friends or observers in caster spots, disguising them as casters so that they can give real-time information feeds to the team. And barring doing that, they've been claiming disconnects or hitting pauses to allow the 2 minutes to catch up, and then utilizing that for D-wards. Now, you're a caster, you work in the competitive scene, you've worked with all of these teams that are listed. How do you feel about that?
I do know that this is a regional thing for one reason or the other. South American teams do often have observers in lobby that have to be kicked. They don't do it as much as I think this implies. I don't want to give anybody the idea that South America is just like a den of thieves that are just like forcing secret observers in. Both teams, for any tournament that's run even remotely well, both teams have to agree to have any observer in who's not an official caster. Mm-hmm. And a lot of tournaments don't even allow observers in who are like agreed on by both teams. So that is not something that typically can happen at a tournament that is run by people who aren't idiots, basically, and for this exact reason. The pause thing is, the jury is out on that. That is something that, once again, the South American region, we've always attributed it to the fact that South America tends to have lag, and they also, as a general rule, don't have as strong of connections or as strong of equipment as North American teams. Though Union Gaming, I'm sure, has great equipment because they're a sponsored team. A lot of other South American teams, for the most part, complain of not having as strong of equipment.
So is there a solution?
Culturally do a lot of pausing.
But is there a solution to if this is happening, and after the accusation comes out, it's one of those things that you have to look at and you have to sort of take seriously, because it is a possibility, and once someone says it's happening, you sort of have to approach it like it is to a certain extent. What's the solution? I mean, we've talked about it in places like Cevo and said, well, can we go to a splash screen? What can we do? And at the end of the day, a splash screen doesn't work because there's still a 2-minute delay where they can scout about.
Well, the fact of the matter is they don't need to pause to scout that. If they're not bad, they can just go ahead and click back on their base to run back to base for bottle or something. If they're going back to the base anyway, they can all tab out, look for that 2-minute delay. One of the solutions potentially is to do a 7-minute delay on streams if we think it's a real big problem, and that would help. For the most part, wards will have expired by the time you can check it out on the delay, but people tend to ward the same spot multiple times over multiple games. At the end of the day, the solution is, if you see pauses coming out from a team, watch that team and watch the timing. And I will be watching now that accusations have come out. And once again, I'm not saying that they are happening. I'm not saying that I believe Ike's Mike when he says that Union Gaming is doing it, but I do think that it is plausible, knowing the team and knowing their pausing habits. I'm going to watch them very carefully, and I'm going to watch every team very carefully.
Would you say that it's plausible or it's possible? Haha, zing. That was a terrible joke. Let's not talk about it. So it is something that was put out there. Feeder Noob, do you have any opinions on this, or is it something? What do you think?
Well, in a traditional sport, you've got a big administration that kind of arbitrates this stuff. And I feel like the fact that it's up to tournament admins for whatever tournament or the community complicates this a lot. So hopefully they will hear that the community is not pleased with this and maybe correct their behavior. But if not, I hope that the admins of the tournament take a serious look at what's going on.
So I think what I hear Feeder saying, if I can paraphrase, is Reddit Army, get out your torches and make sure this doesn't happen again.
I didn't want to say that, but yes.
As a community, guys, if you're watching a game and you see suspicious pausing or whatever going on, just make a Reddit thread or write to the community admins, and if you notice something that looks fishy, we have a whole community of people who care, who can also help to arbitrate. I'm not calling for mob justice, but if you see something where, like, say, Sneaky Nix Assassins or somebody does a pause, and then immediately after the pause, they drop down a bunch of sentry wards in obscure locations and knock down observers. That's suspicious behavior. And so we have on BOD everybody's mouse clicks and keyboard strokes. That helps. We also have on BODs, we can see what their behavior is. We can see if they pause and then go immediately deward. So if you see anything like that, just go ahead and mark down the game times. Say what you think might be happening, throw it up on a Reddit thread, or just email it privately to tournament admins. You can usually find contact information on tournament websites, and that will help to arbitrate this sort of thing. If the audience is also being vocal about when they suspect cheating may be.
Yeah, definitely report suspicious behavior to the nearest authorities, basically. So we are turning Dota into the airport, and if you see someone in a lobby wearing dark glasses and a trench coat, don't trust them. That said, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is also Gorgon's topic here. He is introducing and announced it yesterday on Reddit. It made it to the front page, which was great. A brand new show, which I think is going to really fit a much-needed hole right now. And I believe he's calling it Cevo Learns. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your new show? Just take a minute to convince us why we want to spend our time there.
Okay, well, Cevo Learns, I labeled it a new to Dota cast because I think that's the way that people will most readily understand what it is. It is somewhat like a Purge Suns fan TI4 style broadcast of a live tournament game. But the distinction is what I'm doing is I'm bringing on co-casters. Yesterday it was the gentleman from the Defense of the Patients podcast, but I'm bringing on people who are not professionals in the Dota scene and having them just ask me questions while the game is going. And it's basically, I would consider a friendly conversation over top that is informed by a tournament game. And we basically just discuss simple Dota concepts to more complex Dota concepts and try to make the building blocks for better understanding that don't normally get the time in a traditional broadcast to actually be discussed in depth.
Absolutely.
So we don't focus as much on the play-by-play. We don't focus as much on the teams or their histories. We specifically are talking about different concepts, and we will talk about concepts that kind of bubble up because of the game. But if a big team fight's going on and we're talking about something, we just focus on the thing we're talking about. We just keep barreling through. We also last night had a competition for... We were giving away a bunch of tickets for people who were asking questions in chat, answering those questions. We had Chicago Ted, who's one of our Cevo casters, in chat answering questions. I was answering questions with the 2-minute delay out of the chat. So if you have any questions, if you're one of those people who sits in just general watching VODs or watching casters talk about the game on tournament, and you just have questions and you're always asking the Twitch chat and it's always just kappas to answer, come on by a Cevo Learns and ask questions, and we are happy to talk about a lot of diverse ideas that you may be unfamiliar with and really simplify them for you, give you the building blocks to understand the more complex strategies and more complex technical aspects of the game that a lot of other casters and professional players might talk about.
Excellent. So you heard it here. Cevo Learns, less Pastorino, more Learnerino, with Gorgon the Wonder Cow and the crew over there. So definitely, I watched in got in just at the end because I was doing the SCS series last night, so I didn't get to see the actual show. But what I did get to see, I really enjoyed the back end of it, and it's like that it's a great resource, especially for those folks who are starting to get their heads around Dota 2. So make sure you check that out. Are you playing pretty regularly? Do you have a set time, or should we just follow you on Twitter to find out when it's happening?
There's no set time right now because I'm trying to organize it around the Cevo tournament. It does require a Cevo tournament game to be going. And so I don't want to have it going at the exact same time as other broadcasts are going in Cevo because I want to make sure that this is not considered a competitor to traditional broadcasting. It's really something completely different that also involves tournament games. And so right now it's going to be a week-by-week basis depending on when the best games are going on for Cevo. We're going to go ahead and make sure that those have traditional broadcasts and that we're not competing with those, not drawing viewers away. So follow me on Twitter, and I'll announce it when it's happening every week, and hopefully eventually we'll get down into a more format that's a little more rigidly placed in terms of week by week.
Sounds like it makes sense to me. So follow at GodCowDota if you're interested in this brand new show, which I think is going to be really helpful for kind of getting your head around some new things and relearning some old things. So definitely check it out. Now, after that, we're going to move to our newest feature. This is Feeder Noobs here joining us for what I like to call my Cosmetic Corner. And I told Feeder, who's a known unboxer and a master of the cosmetic arts, that she gets about 5 minutes to just talk to us about the state of hats, basically. So Feeder, I'll turn it over to you as we listen to you talk a little bit about cosmetics today.
So the big news in the hat world right now is that a patch hit last week where treasure keys are going to expire on, I think, July 1st of next year. These are the old brown keys that we used to open pretty much all of the chests with.
Yeah, and they were like a currency for a while, weren't they?
They still are, actually. You can use them right now, redeem them to get pretty much any box that's in the store. And even a box that's not in the store, there's a loading screen treasure that you can get just with keys. They they're not available to buy anymore, but they're above $250 in the Steam market now because if you want a $4 chest, you can just buy a brown key and use that instead.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So is that's just sort of, hey guys, get your keys gone? What do you do? So if by July you have to use your keys, what is everybody doing with their keys right now? Are we frantically spending them? Are we trading them? Like, what's the biggest bang for your key value?
We are still trading them. We're still betting them. But I think right now people want them because you can get the Eternal Alliance, the Trove Carafes, all those big treasures with those keys. So it's nicer than spending the money directly on the Valve store.
Absolutely. Are there any new sets or anything coming out or has been out recently that you think is noteworthy as far as items or immortals or things like that have been out recently?
Yeah, actually, the iLeague ticket, which is about $10, I think, and some of that supports the tournament, comes with a Void Hammer, which is, I think, a nice alternative to the Battle Fury for the not quite time breaker level cosmetics for Void. It has an awesome animation, and it's one of those in-game items. Looks like a Maelstrom, so
Okay.
I think that's pretty exciting.
I'm frantically trying to find a picture of it right now.
It's
I don't know if I'm working fast enough, so we'll have to pull that picture up for you later. But is there anything else that you think we need to know about, or?
Autograph treasures are gone, so that's
Oh, yeah.
sad. And I haven't seen anything too sexy come out in the shop lately. I think the bear ski is pretty cute, but
Bearski is cute.
yeah.
Bear ski is amazing.
Bear ski
Everybody
is
should
amazing.
Buy a Dota 2 Canada Cup ticket to support North American Dota. I'm done. Sorry. As you said,
No, it's fine. So
No,
it's
do it, guys.
it's a nice transition. It's a great job, actually. With the Bearski Courier is a really nice courier created by the Dota 2 Canada Cup. HGTV will be taking over the primary casts on that in playoffs, which is ironic because Gorgon is an HGTV employee, so of course he's going to put that plug out there for those of you who missed the tie-in. Also, though, great tie-in, I will be casting the Dota 2 Canada Cup on Monday night. So Gorgon and I will be there bringing you all the best in their sort of end of the qualifiers, getting ready for the main event. And it's been a great tournament so far. So cheap ticket, great tournament, cheap courier really, because you pay what you would normally pay for a really cool courier, plus you get a great ticket out of it. So a nice little deal there. That is pretty much all of the time that we have for the show today. Before I go, I do want to mention a couple of things real quick. First and foremost, there's a lot of good matches today. Literally a ton of matches are going on throughout Dota today. Big ones to mention, Union Gaming versus Stay Green should be a lot of fun. We are going to have a couple other ones. Let me pull it up real quick here on the screen for you guys. So Invasion versus Arrow is in an hour. That's going to be a good one. Myth versus Titan will be another good one. And Bounty Hunter series starts off with the Stay Green versus UG and SNA versus CNB. And Pimp Muckle will be bringing you those over on Hitbox TV. So if in 5 hours you're like, where the heck is the Bounty Hunter fights? Where's SNA? I'd like to see their new team. It's because they're over on Hitbox with Pimp, so you can find them there. Finally, keeping this in mind, a little bit of other gaming news for you. ESV has announced the first ever Hero of the Storms league is actually starting, professional league. So if you're interested in that sort of casual version of Dota, you can check that out. I didn't even think at the stage, it's still in alpha, but they are getting it up and running officially. So definitely worth noting. Before we sign out and head off for the day, guys, let me remind you that you can get the RSS. You can download the podcast and as soon as iTunes approves me for it. But we appreciate you guys being here. Gorgon, is there any last words you want to give to the audience before we head out for the day?
Just go ahead and throw me a follow on Twitter at GuyCowDota if you're interested in the sort of stuff that I'm working on. And my new series for more geared toward the same audience that Dota Learns is, a written series called Baby Roshan, is going to be going live with its second incarnation this weekend on highground.tv. So it's just a little editorial thing where I take submissions from the general community, aspects of the game that they wish that they understood better, and I do a little bit of a write-up on it with usually a little bit of visual aids, pictures, and things like that.
Awesome feature. And Feeder Noob, any parting words before we head out?
You guys can follow me at FaderNoob on Twitter and have a great day and happy Dota.
Happy Dota. That's a great way to put it, guys. I have been Toffees. As always, you can follow me at Toffees_Dota2. I hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you on Monday with all the big changes over the weekend. As always, it has been wonderful to have you here. I'm going to cut stream just so that we can avoid copyright issues, and then I'll be right back with our typical Aloha Friday outro music. So, as always, have a great morning. Enjoy the game.